Hey legends! Today I'm bringing you something dangerous, a story packed with suspense, mystery, love, and romance. It's brand new, it just dropped worldwide, and you're about to watch it right here on Kamacho Recaps, the legendary channel. At first it'll feel completely ordinary, but trust me, what comes after is straight up fantastical. So buckle up, because the drama is about to hit hard. Our series opens with Professor Moon at his university, giving a lecture on literature, poetry, and how to write novels. After he finishes, he hands back the student's graded novels and starts to walk off, when one of his students stops him and snaps, "How could you say my novel is trash? You don't even know who I am. I'm a famous blogger. I could expose you. I get 20,000 likes a day." He replies, "Famous like Kamacho Recaps?" She says, "Honestly, not quite there yet." He tells her, "Then it doesn't matter who you are. And yes, your novel really is trash, because you wrote it with AI. There's no emotion in it at all. Here's your paper back," and walks away. All the students start mocking him behind his back, calling him heartless and ungrateful, saying he spent his whole life having written only one novel, which is exactly why he's so bitter and takes it out on everyone else. He heads back to his office and finds someone waiting for him. "What are you doing here?" Moon asks. "The door was open, so I let myself in. Don't worry, I didn't touch anything," the man says. "Let's get to the point. There's a former classmate of yours from university, a guy named Kim. He's considered the most famous novelist around. He's coming to give a guest lecture to the students about his new novel and his older work, and he specifically requested that you be the one to interview it. That's his only condition for showing up." This throws Moon into a spiral of memories. Years ago, he'd gone to Kim for help, to get Kim to recommend his novel to the public, since Kim was already famous at the time. But Kim told him bluntly, "Your novel has no real meaning. All you care about is pleasing the audience, and your ideas are thin. I can't risk my reputation for you." The next day at university, Moon starts teaching a lesson about a novel centered on two people in love, going through the characters' names. A student named Yoon is in class playing music through his earphones, and when it disrupts the lecture, an irritated Moon tries to kick him out. But another student, Kong, steps in to defend Yoon, pointing out that it's actually the professor who's not paying attention, since he got the main characters' names wrong. Kong corrects him in front of everyone, thoroughly embarrassing him. Class ends, and the students turn in their new novel assignments. As usual, Moon goes home and reads through them, finding nothing worthwhile, until he reaches Kang's, the very student who'd humiliated. Kang's novel is a moving story about his relationship with Yoon, one he titles Envy Before Friendship. In the story, Kang says he first saw Yoon back when he was working a part-time job. He found Yoon's phone, saw a photo of Yoon with his mother, and felt a pang. Yoon's life looked beautiful. When Yoon came to grab his phone back, Kang watched how his mother treated him and realized just how warm and lovely she was. Jealousy crept in, and Kang decided to get close to Yoon, become his friend, and work his way into his life. He noticed what Yoon loved and taught himself to be good at it too. That's how Yoon ended up approaching him first, saying, "You're into coding like me? You're actually good at it." Kang played along. "Yeah, man, I'm actually studying engineering." Yoon suggested they become friends and invited him home. Exactly what Kang had been engineering all along, a way into that house. That's where his submitted chapter ends. The professor is intrigued and eagerly awaits the next installment. The next day, Kang continues the story. The day after his first visit, he felt like the house belonged to him, like he'd seen it before somewhere. He described seeing Yoon's mother, more beautiful than her photo, someone who loved flowers and filled the home with warmth. Their family seemed genuinely happy, and he saw a full family photo and felt himself falling for all of it. Back in the present, Moon shows the novel to his wife, a psychiatrist, and asks her to analyze Kang's character. She tells him Kang clearly wishes he could be in Yoon's place. He envies him, because he can't live that kind of life himself, so he's living it out through writing instead. She asks if Moon likes Kang's writing style, since it's genuinely good, and suggests he mentor him. The idea excites Moon. He could actually be the one to make Kang a star, becoming a celebrated professor himself in the process. The next day, back at university, Moon runs into Kang and asks him bluntly, "Do you wish you could take Yoon's place? Do you feel the same way about him that I once felt about someone?" Caught off guard, Moon quickly changes the subject. "I want to teach you how to write novels." Kang says he doesn't have time. Money matters more to him, which is why he's juggling several jobs. Moon offers to pay him the equivalent of one of his jobs if he quits it to focus on writing. Kang mulls it over and agrees. Moon eagerly prepares his home to welcome Kang, much to his wife's surprise. She hasn't seen him this lively in a long time. But when Kang arrives, he drops a bombshell. "I can't write anymore." "Why, son? What happened?" Moon asks. Kang explains that earlier that day at Yoon's house, while they were studying together, he went to use the bathroom but got distracted and accidentally wandered into the bedroom instead, and Yoon Yoon's mother caught him standing there. "It's not what you think," he insists. "I was just looking at the clothes, the expensive things. I didn't touch any money, I swear." I told her I didn't know where the bathroom was and ended up in the wrong room. Because she's a decent, composed woman, she didn't make a scene. She treated him kindly, even had a meal with him and introduced him to her husband. But that night, walking home, he overheard her venting to her husband, calling him an ill-mannered kid. Her husband told her they had to put up with him for Yoon's sake. Moon asks what the real problem is, and Kong admits he and Yoon entered a coding competition together, and the family expects Yoon to win. If Kong, by comparison, does too well, they might see him as a threat and kick him out of the house, and without staying there, he can't keep writing the story. "I'm good," Kong says, "but there are people way better than me out there, and if we lose, they'll realize I'm useless in using their son, and I'll be out." There's only one way around it. He asks Moon to steal the coding exam answers from his engineer colleague's office. Moon is stunned. "Are you out of your mind? You want me to steal, at my age?" and throws him out. Kong apologizes but insists he simply can't write anymore, and every day at university he hands in nothing but blank pages, driving Moon crazy with frustration, desperate to know where the story goes. Then the day comes for Kim's visit to the university, and Moon is set to interview him. All the students are excited except Moon, who's eaten up with envy. Kim is living the life Moon always wanted for himself. Tense, Moon throws in a question that's really his own, not one from the students: whether Kim's most recent, different novel was written purely to please the audience, and whether he's simply run out of ideas. Kim senses immediately this isn't a student's question, and answers honestly, yes, he's out of ideas. This backfires on Moon. His blunt answer wins over the entire room, with students sympathizing, cheering for Kim even more. Afterward, everyone goes out for food and drinks, praising Kim and his daughter, who wrote her first novel and won a major award. Fuming, Moon steps away alone and runs into Kong, who happens to be working part-time at that very cafe. Kong tells him, "I've decided to write my first real novel. You once said I was a good writer." Moon says, "Yeah, but you still need a lot more work, son." Kong says, "Then teach me." That night, Moon comes home, sips some lemonade, and falls asleep without covering. He dreams that Kong finishes his first novel, becomes famous, and takes the stage to thunderous applause. But in the dream, Kong thanks no one but Moon, the professor who taught him everything. Waking the next day, Moon finds Kong and agrees to his deal. In exchange for finishing the story, Moon will get him the exam answers. They plot it together. Moon visits the engineer holding the exam questions and asks him to build a program to track student attendance, since the paperwork is exhausting. While at the man's desk, Moon fakes chest pains, pretending he's having a heart attack, and begs the engineer to rush to his car for medicine. The moment the man dashes off, Moon copies the answers and tells him, when he returns, that he's fine now. Moon rushes off with the stolen answers, buzzing with the thrill of doing something reckless for once in his life. He feels young again. Later, he checks on Kong and Yoon's results. They placed second. Confused how that's possible, he finds Kong waiting for him. "I refuse to answer every single question," Kong explains, "so no one would get suspicious and start digging and find out I cheated." This delights Moon. He feels satisfied, having achieved his goal, especially when Yoon's family invites him to dinner that night. Kong writes a new chapter about that dinner. He brought a bouquet of the exact flowers Yoon's mother loves. When she asked about his family, he decided, for the first time ever, to tell someone the whole truth. His father had been sick, addicted to alcohol, so his mother couldn't cope and left them both. He had to work and ended up in a care home with his father, studying hard until he earned a university scholarship. He kept people at a distance so no one would uncover his past. He'd always been alone, until he met their son and finally understood what real friendship meant. He felt like someone special was in his life for once, and once he got to know their family, he understood where Yoon got that specialness from, the warmth of a real family. Moved, Yoon's mother tells him, "We're your family now, and you're one of us. Our home is open to you anytime." Kong spends a wonderful evening with them, feeling truly like part of the family, and at the end of the chapter, he thanks Moon, saying, "If you hadn't stolen those exam answers, I wouldn't be where I am now." Unfortunately, Moon's wife reads this chapter and asks what's going on. Irritated, he snaps at her not to go into his office again. She retreats to her room, hurt, but he follows and makes up with her, lying down on her bed and telling her, "This is the first time I've ever done something wrong, and honestly, I loved breaking the rules. I felt a rush like nothing before." She tells him she understands. He's always been a by-the-book person, never once stepping out of line, and this is the first time he's shown he's willing to. She notes it's been 12 years since he slept in her bed like this. They've always kept separate rooms, and from that day on, he decides to sleep in her room again. They wake up the next morning reconciled, and she happily makes him breakfast. That same day, Kong is due back for his lesson, and Moon's wife, curious curious about him, waits eagerly to meet him. When Kong arrives, he brings her flowers too. Her husband teases him, trying to charm her too. Kong explains he just felt awkward showing up empty-handed since it was their first meeting, so he grabbed some flowers on the way. Moon eyes him suspiciously, joking, "What else have you been up to?" Kong tells him about something he hasn't mentioned yet. Yoon offered to let him move in permanently, since his older sister, who's away working, has an empty room. Kong explains that when he asked Yoon about it, Yoon said it was actually his father who pushed for it until the mother agreed, and Kong admits the father seems like such a genuinely good man that he wants to be like him. Moon scolds him, "You're being shallow. You can't judge someone from one impression. To be a real writer, you need to properly analyze the person in front of you first." That's today's lesson. Watch the father closely, study his behavior, and figure out for yourself whether he's a good man or not, and build a full picture of it. Afterward, Moon goes shopping with his wife, who can't stop analyzing Kang's character, how fascinating and captivating he is, unlike anyone she's encountered before in her career as a psychiatrist. This visibly bothers her husband, who storms off. Back home, she tells him she's actually worried about Kong, since he's never really been part of a family before, which means he could end up doing something reckless. This triggers Moon's memory of the fighting game Kong designed and showed him earlier, and that night he dreams that Kong murders the entire family. He wakes with a start, tucks his wife back in, and settles down, reassuring himself everything's fine, because in reality, at that point, Kong is living happily and comfortably as part of the family, considered one of their own. He's even talking to their daughter, who's away, and she tells him he can use her old room. He feels like his new life is falling perfectly into place, with nothing standing in his way. But there's a snag. The housekeeper can't stand him, since his presence has doubled her workload. She starts treating him badly, even accidentally spills juice on him and slips cigarettes into his clothes to frame him. Luckily, Yoon's mother doesn't fall for it. She notices lipstick marks on the cigarettes and realizes they're actually the housekeeper's own, who'd been sneaking smoke breaks. When confronted, the housekeeper insists cigarettes are bad for the houseplants, an excuse to avoid getting caught, and swears she'll stop. The mother lets it go and walks off, but the housekeeper lights up another anyway, unaware Kong is secretly watching her from hiding the whole time. Kong later returns to tell Moon everything that happened, along with a new chapter, this one centered on a novel within the novel called 12, about a man who's loved 12 different girls at once. Kong says he feels like he himself is that man, both the author and the character living it simultaneously. Moon tells him it's entirely possible for that to happen, but explains that the 12 girls in the story are metaphorically really just one. Kang's mind is too young to fully grasp the layered meaning yet. Kong continues, describing another moment in the household. After the mother got upset over her argument with the housekeeper, the father comforted her with a massage, and it was obvious from his touch how much he loved her. Kong, sounding naive, asks Moon, does touch always mean love, or can it mean something else? Hinting he might be asking about Moon's own marriage. Angered, Moon snaps that Kong shouldn't pry into his personal life and should just go home, live his own life, and come back only to report what he observes. Next time, Kong confesses he got petty revenge on the housekeeper. He planted the mother's jacket in the housekeeper's bag, making her look like a thief. Moon explodes at him, "You're destroying their lives. It's not your place. Leave them alone." Kong defends himself, insisting the housekeeper started it by trying to get between him and the family first, so she deserved it. Moon is furious, but Kong adds something troubling. The father, it turns out, isn't the good man he seemed. After the mother fired the housekeeper, the father secretly went after her, supposedly to give her a piece of his mind, but instead, Kong witnessed the two of them growing close, revealing they'd secretly been having an affair all along. This enrages Moon even more. His wife arrives and, trying to soothe him, they sit down together, and Kong reveals something else. He learned that Kim's wife herself is the inspiration behind Kim's only published novel. The man told Kong directly that the 12 girls in his own book were really all one woman, and that she's an incredibly compelling character. This upsets Moon's wife deeply, since it's clear Kim's book is actually about his own old flame, the same woman Moon used to be involved with too. Instead of fixing things between Moon and his wife, this revelation shatters their relationship further, spiraling Moon into such distress that he dreams again of Kong killing the whole family. Suddenly Kong calls, frantic, claiming there's been an accident and Moon needs to come right away. Moon rushes out, desperate to understand what's happened, but when he arrives, Kong admits, "There's nothing wrong, I lied. I've actually been watching the father, and I caught him bringing the housekeeper to a hotel room. Come see for yourself so you'll believe me." Furious that his life has become so consumed by these people, and that Kong woke him up with a lie, Moon snaps, "You're a sick person. I'm done giving you lessons. I don't want you writing novels anymore, and I'm done with you as my student." But just then, an accident occurs at that very hotel, and and when they arrive to see who's involved, it's the housekeeper, with the father also pointed to as being there. That father, it's revealed, is none other than Kim himself, Moon's old university friend. So who's the other father figure we've been hearing about all this time? Well, dear viewer, everything you've heard until this point about the professor and Kong and Gyun, that was actually all inside Moon's imagination. Now here comes the real story, dear viewer. Moon is left utterly shaken. How could the man he hates most also be the hero of Kang's novel? He gets in his car, driving distracted the whole way home, imagining Kim's real wife's face, since it turns out he actually knows her well. She's his own former love. Memories flood back. Back in university, he'd been part of a group of friends but was too shy to admit he was in love with the woman who's now Kim's wife. He never found the courage to express his feelings, and then Kim swooped in and took her right in front of him, stealing her away. Losing her was the very story behind his one and only published novel, and losing her also broke something inside him. He never wrote again after that. Snapping out of the memory, suffocated and exhausted, Moon decides he wants revenge on Kim for betraying his wife. The pain of losing her all those years ago still lingers, and it's exactly what's now poisoning his own marriage. The next day, teaching class, Moon notices Kong is completely distracted. He calls him into his office to ask what's wrong. Kong admits he's shocked by Kim. One moment he saw him as a saint, the next as a devil, and he doesn't understand how to reconcile the two. If anything happens, tell me, Moon says. Kong replies he's already written down everything that happened and hands it over, but insists Moon has to stick to their agreement. No more writing help after this. Moon reads the latest chapter. Kong describes how, at breakfast, Kim acted like nothing had happened, while his wife was visibly consumed with guilt over having fired the housekeeper, which is why the housekeeper never came back, upsetting Yoon too, who didn't know the real reason. Then a call comes in, and when the mother answers, the shock hits. The housekeeper died after the accident, unable to recover. Kim, hearing the news from the police, acts as though he knows nothing, completely cold, as if he has no heart at all. Even Yoon faints from the shock of the news. The mother is consumed with guilt, believing she caused the housekeeper's death by firing her, but Kim doesn't care at all. He pulls his wife into a hug to comfort her, and then, afterward, lets out a chilling, sinister laugh. That's where the chapter ends. Moon doesn't understand the meaning of that laugh and goes to ask Kong directly. Kong says he just felt something was off. It wasn't a normal laugh. Moon explains that a single expression can carry many hidden meanings, and to truly understand it, you have to know exactly what's behind it and its purpose. So for today's lesson, Moon tells him, go to the hotel where the accident happened, and there you'll uncover the whole truth. Kong asks him to come along, but Moon says he has an important appointment and heads home instead. Back home, Moon tries to patch things up with his wife. They go to the movies together, watch a horror film, though she still doesn't quite believe things are fixed. Later, they invite the engineer and his wife over for dinner. The engineer's wife is surprised at how casually Moon and his wife act around each other, like an ordinary married couple, and Moon's wife mentions, almost proudly, that they sometimes just sleep next to each other normally. The engineer's wife can't believe it. She brings up how she and her husband have been trying to have a baby for 13 years without success. Moon gets up to use the bathroom, telling everyone that's enough talk. In private, the two wives argue, with Moon's wife snapping at her. Watch what you say. You're the one who set my husband off. Then you leave, thinking your little dig was harmless. In truth, Moon had gotten up because Kong had messaged him with news. Going back to Kang's investigation, at the hotel, no one wanted to talk about Kim until he found an old high school friend of his working there. They used to work together, each with their own dream. Kang's friend achieved his by getting into university, but that friend never made it and ended up working at that hotel instead. Because of that, when asked about Kim, he decides to be a good friend and open up, revealing that Kim is a VIP guest who's always brought women up to his private suite, cheating on his wife constantly, which apparently has been the inspiration behind all his books, since every character he's written is based on someone he's been unfaithful with. But on the exact day the housekeeper died, the friend overheard her arguing with Kim, threatening, "I'll expose you. I'll tell your wife and the whole world the truth, and I have proof." She then ran down into the street, and Kim tried to grab her, maybe to calm her down, but she pulled away, and a car hit her. Kim fled the scene. Before Kong can finish writing the chapter, Moon's wife calls and tells him Kim just showed up at their place. Moon leaves the message and heads over to find Kim there with the engineer and his wife, taking photos together. Annoyed, Moon asks what he's doing there. Kim explains he was meeting a producer about publishing his books, but he's still stuck for ideas. Moon presses, "So where does your inspiration come from? Traveling, or doing questionable things?" Kim, thrown off, insists he just travels normally. Even Moon's wife finds the question strange and awkwardly deflects it, chalking it up to curiosity. Moon's just been unemployed and out of ideas lately. She explains explains, which is why he's asking so many odd questions. Kim brushes it off casually, saying he and Moon are old friends. He and his wife had actually been talking about him recently since they discovered he tutors their son. But the moment Kim mentions his wife's name, her face visibly drains of color. They all return home from the outing, and what should have been a romantic evening turns sour instead. Moon and his wife argue. He blames her for what she said. She blames him for how strongly he reacted when his old love came up. They retreat to separate rooms for the night. Moon finishes reading the rest of Kang's chapter. The crucial part: Kang's friend mentioned a young man had come to the hotel earlier, asking whether the incident was just an accident or actual murder. This jogs Moon's memory of Kim's sinister laugh, and he calls Kong immediately, waking him up, insisting they need to find out who that young man was, and why he was asking whether it was murder. Kong tells him to calm down. I already know who it was. It's Yoon. I saw him breaking down, tearing pages out of his father's book. He'd even called his sister, saying, our father is a murderer. Kong tells Moon he's certain Yoon is the one who asked, because his behavior these past 2 days has been completely off. Off how? Moon asks. Kong explains Yoon's locked himself in his room, glued to video games non-stop, refusing to study coding, refusing to eat with them when invited, yet whenever he does come down, he keeps giving Kong strange, unreadable looks. Moon says they need to confirm whether it really was Yoon who asked, whether it was actually murder or just an accident, and what made him suspect it was murder in the first place. Kong goes back to his friend and gets a photo proving Yoon's clothes and build matched the person who was there that day. He shows it to Moon, who then asks him what's wrong, since Kong looks upset. Kong admits, at first I was plotting against Yoon's life. Now, seeing all this, I actually feel sorry for him. Moon says, he seems fine at school, though, doesn't he? Kong replies that's exactly what's strange. Yoon seems completely shattered at home but shows nothing at school. Moon decides to use this to manipulate Kong further. Since you feel for him, let's help him expose his father's true nature and get justice for the housekeeper who died. But first, we need to confirm whether it was actually murder. Kong asks how. Moon tells him, get close to Yoon, watch him carefully. Kong agrees, and adds one more thing. Yoon's older sister is coming to visit, and it seems like he and Kong have grown close, meaning Kong will finally learn the whole truth from her. The next day she arrives, and Kong sits with her, getting her to sign a copy of her book. Her brother comes and pulls her away into another room. That's when it's revealed she already knows their father preys on women and mistreats them to fuel his writing. She's stunned to learn the housekeeper was one of his victims. Yoon tells his sister bluntly that their father killed the housekeeper. Before Kong can hear more, their mother calls them away. Kong follows and finds the sister buying cake for their father's birthday. He compliments it just to get rid of her, then heads to the garage to eavesdrop on the siblings. He overhears Yoon has told her everything. She asks what makes him so sure their father did it. He tells her he was at the scene, followed the ambulance to the hospital, and saw the truth with his own eyes. He's certain. She asks what could have possibly made him go to the accident scene in the first place. Yoon admits he'd assumed his sister would side with him and support him, but then asks if he's told anyone else. He says no. She tells him this conversation stays strictly between them and no one else can know. He asks why, and she snaps. Have you forgotten what happened to Mom when she found out Dad was cheating? She fell into depression just from that. Imagine if she found out he's also a murderer. Yoon argues that their mother only pretends she's forgotten, and if she knew he still remembered, it would send her spiraling back into depression. Exhausted, the sister finally says bluntly, if anyone finds out, Dad's reputation is ruined, my career is ruined too. Shocked, Yoon asks how she can even think like that, and starts crying. She grabs him and threatens that if he tells anyone, she'll kill him herself. Kong, watching all this, is horrified, and Moon, hearing the whole account from him later, is at a loss for what to do next. Moon suggests a plan: reveal the truth to Kim's wife through her son, since Yoon is the only one she truly trusts and loves. Kong objects, that's insane. You want her to relapse into depression. Moon snaps back, and what's it to you, hero? Kong tells him not to do it and storms off, refusing to admit that this woman was Moon's old love and that he still loves her to this day, unable to let her go. In a dramatic turn, hoping to talk himself out of his plan, Moon happens to see Kim's wife walking by. He follows her, hesitant to approach, but just as he works up the courage, Kim appears and pulls her into an embrace. Moon walks away, wounded and fixated on revenge, torn about what to do next. His wife comes to him, determined to fix things between them. She tells him about a couple she counseled that day who resolved their issues, which inspired her to try the same with. She starts apologizing for things she hasn't even done, opening up about what's been bothering her. But Moon isn't fully present, until a message from Kong interrupts them and he rushes to check it. Kong has sent him a recording. Watch this, sir. Kim had received an anonymous letter. The moment he opened it, He trembled, and the glass of juice slipped right out of his hands. When Kong asked what was in it, Kim brushed it off, claiming it was from an obsessive fan, calling Kong naive. But Kim then left his office, and Kong secretly went through the shredded pieces of the letter, reconstructing it, discovering it said, "I know what happened at the hospital. If you don't want me to expose you, meet me today at 10. Later, while they were having a meal, the mother suggested they go out together, but Kim claimed he had another appointment, and coincidentally, Yoon gave the exact same excuse. This made Kong suspect it was actually Yoon who sent the letter to his own father, finally deciding to be brave and confront him directly with truth. Kong adds that he saw a look of pure hatred in Yoon's eyes like never before. "I'm heading there now." Worried, Moon urges caution, but Kong insists there's no other way. "Just take care of yourself, and call me the second you're done." Moon then goes back to his wife, only to find her furious, accusing him of lying, of promising he'd stay away from this whole novel business and instead hiding everything from her. He snaps back, asking why she's being so difficult. She fires back, "I've come down here, put up with everything, done everything for you, and you're still completely absent." Calmly, Moon tells her to stop with the sarcasm and retreats to his room, but he can't rest, his mind racing, and an hour passes with no word from Kong, no answer to his calls, until finally at 2 a.m. Kong calls. "Listen to the latest," Kong says, "because what's coming next is explosive. I was watching Yoon closely, and right before he went to confront his father with the truth, Kim got a phone call and rushed off. I chased after him, following from a distance. When I caught up to Yoon, I was floored, because his mother was also there, and it turns out she already knew everything from the start. When I told her I knew too and threatened to go to the police, she told me the whole truth." Moon, thrilled, says, "Great, stay right there, catch your breath, and tell me everything." But before Kong can continue, another call comes in and he has to go. A full day passes, feeling like an entire year to Moon, until Kong finally calls back, apologizing for disappearing. He explains, "You know my father's in a care facility because of his alcohol addiction. He escaped once, so I had to travel and couldn't come back right away." Moon asks what happened, and about their story, but Kong deflects, "No, son, sorry to hear about your father. As for the rest of the story, we'll pick it up later. Don't worry, I'll sort things out and send you the rest of it, day by day." Moon waits anxiously for the messages, and finally, in the middle of a lecture, he gets one from Kong. He cancels his class immediately and rushes off to read it, imagining himself sitting with Kim's wife as she tells her side of the story. "I always knew my husband was unfaithful and not a good man, and to be clear, I also noticed the housekeeper getting too close to him, flirting with. I was suffocating, unable to stand it. But eventually I told myself, cheating with a housekeeper is no different than cheating with a minister. It's still cheating either way. What really shattered me was finding a pregnancy test in the bathroom. When I went through the housekeeper's bag, I found a stolen shawl of mine in there, along with the pregnancy test. When she caught me, she made up an excuse about the shawl, and I fired her on the spot. I told my husband she was a thief, but instead he defended her. That's when I decided I had to draw a line. The next day, I confronted her directly with the truth, but she shocked me back, saying she'd never touch my husband, that he was the real thief and cheater, not her. I asked her, cheater, fine, we all know that, but how? She told me she had a sister who died of cancer a year earlier, whose one dream had been to become a writer. She'd written a full novel, but died before she could publish it. When the housekeeper read it, she loved it, and offered to sell it to my husband, expecting money in return. But my husband asked her to bring it to Kim first, since she worked for him, thinking he'd help. Kim, though, just left the manuscript sitting there, ignoring her. When she pressed him, he told her he was too busy. She said, fine, give it back, since there's only one copy and I'll handle it myself and publish it. But he told her to go find it herself, and kept stalling until he eventually published it under his own name. When she went to confront him about it, he told her she had no proof, no idea he'd kept a second copy, and once he threatened her back, she became completely trapped, wrapped around his finger, forced to do whatever he wanted, silenced. That's what made her believe he was cheating her, but in reality, he was actually trying to kill her that whole time. That's the exact moment his own son saw Kim trying to strangle her. Kim's wife is devastated learning the truth about her husband, but too afraid of losing her family to act. She decides instead to buy the proof from the housekeeper, who's thrilled, saying that's exactly what she wanted from the start. But your husband is stingy. But just as she arrived, she got a call from her daughter saying her brother now knew everything, so she rushed to find him instead. When she later called Yoon, he told her the cameras showed nothing useful. After learning all of this, Yoon fell apart, not knowing what to do, and it broke his heart to see his father's old love. Kim's wife's tale ends with her admitting she regrets destroying the only piece of evidence they had. Moon decides to force the ending himself. He calls Kong, waking him, and tells him, "You're going to say that you were at the accident scene, that you went to the hospital, and that you saw with your own eyes Kim killing the housekeeper. You're going to become the evidence." Kong refuses outright, saying his father is unwell and he has no patience left for Moon's nonsense. "Write the ending yourself. You clearly have all the material you need." This brings back all of Moon's memories of being bullied and belittled by Kim years ago, and he decides he won't spare him. He'll show him exactly how much he hates him and write him the ending he truly deserves. He stays up all night working on it. By morning, Kong calls him, saying he's tried calling 100 times with no answer. "What's wrong? Did something happen?" Moon replies, "The finale is dangerous. The ending is explosive. The story keeps going. Yoon called me last night saying his father's going to kill them all and burn the house down." He rushes into his car, determined to save them, imagining the scene playing out just like his earlier nightmare. Kong murdering the family, except this time Kim is the killer instead. He gets pulled over by traffic police and speeds off to escape them, desperate to reach his loved ones in time. But when he arrives, he finds the fire department and ambulance already there, except there's no fire, no bodies, nothing at all, and it turns out he's the one who called them in the first place. As police close in, he keeps pounding on the door, screaming that Yoon and his mother are dead inside and Kim killed them, only to find them all standing right there, alive and fine. They ask if he's okay and offer him something to drink. His old love, Kim's wife, is visibly shaken seeing him in this state, on the verge of a breakdown. He calls Kong, who doesn't answer, so he rushes to find him, but Kong avoids him entirely. He returns home to find his wife packing her bags, ready to leave. "Kong told me everything," she says. "He said you're still stuck chasing your old love from the past. So I'm leaving, packing up and going, and you won't hear from me again." Then his colleague, the engineer, calls too, telling him a report has come out about him, claiming he tried to manipulate someone into writing a story that would smear Kim's reputation, and that when Kim refused, Moon offered him the coding exam answers in exchange, which he also turned down, which is why he only placed second. The engineer asks if it's true that Moon stole and passed him the exam answers. Moon is left completely overwhelmed, finally realizing he'd been played, manipulated and used for revenge from the very start, and that everything happening to him had been orchestrated entirely by Kong. The next day, he's called in for questioning after the scandal spreads everywhere. He denies every accusation, insisting Kong manipulated him, but everyone keeps grilling him, and in his state of shock, he barely responds. They press him, "Why would Kong do this to you? Didn't you know him beforehand?" He doesn't answer, entirely consumed by confusion and unable to understand why any of this happened. He goes home and collapses on his couch, drowning himself in alcohol, days blurring together, until finally, Kong sends him a message. "I let you live your own story and write its ending the way you wanted, because I know how obsessed you are with stories and how quickly you consume them, so I decided to live it out for you instead. Since you wrote the ending, now I'll tell you the whole story, from the very beginning. Do you remember, Moon, 12 years ago, when you went with your wife to an orphanage because she had a counseling session there? She wanted you to come along, hoping the change of scenery might help you write again after being so creatively stuck. There, you met an 8-year-old boy, sad, depressed, sitting all alone. You sat down and talked to him, gave him a reason to love life again, got him, for the first time, to open up about his parents who'd died. You got him to express everything bottled up inside him just by encouraging him to imagine, to dream, to truly live. You were the light in that child's darkness. That child was me. I loved you from the bottom of my heart. You were my role model. And the day you were leaving, I told your wife, I love you so much. I got your number and address from her, wanting to reach out and talk to you, tell you everything. But when she told you, you snapped at her, because you didn't want me contacting you. You told her, that kid was just an experiment. His story means nothing. His parents died. He's just another orphan like any other. Even though when you first found me, alone, you thought I'd turn out to be something special, in the end, you decided my story meant nothing. Your wife herself was shocked by how cold-hearted you were being, something you never knew, because I was standing right there, listening. That's when I decided to get revenge on you, no matter what it took, and get myself into your university. By pure luck, on the day I started, I didn't see photos of Yoon and his mother. I saw Yoon himself, and heard him talking about you, saying you were once obsessed with his mother and hated his father with a passion. So I decided to play you exactly where it would hurt most. I got close to Yoon and his mother to get close to you, and turned you against the easiest target imaginable to hate. It's true they never actually had a housekeeper. The woman involved in the accident that day was actually working for Kim. When I pointed the finger at Kim, you stayed convinced and shocked, and from there you kept insisting I write my own story and live it out for you, and you believed Kim was the villain, letting your hatred convince you he even killed his own wife. Now you're left in shock after learning the truth, and after losing everything from your own hands. It turns out Kang's father really is dead. The man supposedly caring for him in the hospital, whom he considers a father figure, is actually the director of the orphanage where he grew up. And now Kang is finally satisfied, having gotten his revenge on Moon in full. Days pass, and things go back to normal, Moon working at his desk, saying, "Alright, let's start a new video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you catch the next one the moment it drops, because we're diving into another story soon. Are you ready for it, or not up for it?" And that's a wrap for tonight, dear viewer, packed with all the juicy details. I know you enjoyed it, so don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.